Bring that in. Let's make that live. Whoop. Are we streaming? Let's post that. Yep, we are live. And let's post this. Yes, I would like to ping 600 people, please. Hey, Benjamin Returns. How you doing? How are we doing? What I'm guessing is my sub crew. What's wrong, Risky? Why are you booing me? I'm not saying you shouldn't be booing me. Be live. Ah, I see. I have chugged enough Red Bull this week. I am drinking Mother instead for today. My body has consumed a yearly supply of Red Bull over the last 7 days. No, Max, you get a red shirt. You get this red shirt for every single ENGG1500 lecture. It's a different streaming platform where you go for that. I've already got more assignments sent to me than I can possibly deal with at the moment, so I've got like 5 or 6 that I want to hit. I'll probably realistically get through 3 or 4 of them. I've had maybe 30 or 40 sent to me, so I'll get through what I can. You assume I bleed when I get cut. I am no mere mortal who could be wounded so easily. Not really. At this stage, I feel a stiff breeze would knock me over. Yeah, we can talk a little bit about what needs to go on a scope. I've got a bit here to sort of clarify some of this stuff. But your scope is largely around how big, how many, how much. So, you're a software, right? How big is this application going to be? How many users is it going to service? How many people are going to use it? How many people are going to be using it at once? How much data is going to be uploaded to it? How quickly does that data need to be accessed? How quickly is somebody meant to be able to check in, check out? Put all of those bounds on it. What am I doing? How are you guys doing? Hanging out for the break? Should we use a performance criteria matrix for that specific section? No. So you shouldn't use a performance criteria matrix at all. So that's not really a thing. Your performance criteria is kind of one axis, and then your solutions normally would make up another axis, and that would give you a decision matrix. So you don't have a whole bunch of solutions yet. So all you need to do is get your weighted performance criteria. On what criteria will you evaluate whether a solution is good or bad? And how important are each of those factors to you? Really, really tired. Yeah, perhaps, chicken. I feel that. The lecture starts at 5 past. All of my lectures always start at 5 past. Hyped for the long weekend? It's my birthday today. Hey, happy birthday. For your scope, you add a description of who the clients are and what they want us to do and all that. Um, Maybe that's appropriate in the scope. That may be more appropriate in the performance criteria. I'd write both of those sections. There will be some overlap between them. A draft one, draft the other, and kind of bounce back and forwards between them to make sure you've got the right stuff in the right places. The scope should help make the performance criteria section make sense, but there shouldn't necessarily be heaps of overlap, although there will be some. Just stocked up on beer for the camping? Good. What do you do if you can't find an author for the website? Yeah, you just leave it out. It happens. One of the kind of issues around referencing systems is that they're really designed for things like journal articles and books, things that go through official publication methods, particularly ones used at university, which are a little bit sort of stick up your ass kind of very formal things, because we normally use them for writing papers, journal articles and stuff. So we should be formal in those cases. Which can sometimes make them less adaptable to the way in which students and industry in general find their information. So you're not always going to find the author for a website. That should maybe make you question the validity of that website. A website without an author, that's definitely a red flag. I'm not saying it means it's necessarily bad, but it means it might be bad. So question it. If you're still happy to use it, that's fine. You just don't put an author in for that. For the natural disaster in the problem, which project are you doing? Because a disaster case can be used for many different projects. Scope sections are about bounding your problem. Okay, so what is a plausible solution and what is absolutely not a plausible solution? So if your solution needs to work for 1,000 people, then that should be a line in the sand in your scope. Must suit at least 1,000 people. I don't care how good your idea is. If it doesn't suit 1,000 people, it's garbage and it goes in the bin. It's about putting really hard bounds on the box of your solution space. So in assignment 2, we have to choose a client. You don't choose one, you have one. Competitor for Cordell. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much you define them from that point onwards. It's irrelevant. They can just be a competitor to Cordell, or they could be Cordell. It doesn't really matter. You're fine either way there. Don't stress. Unless it's going to change your design, it's irrelevant. So if we use IEEE, can we just put the number as a cross-reference? Not, yeah, that's how IEEE works. That's all you ever do in IEEE. I'm going to do an example with some referencing stuff for you guys because there's been a few questions and I think you're all making this way harder than you need to. Just use the word inbuilt referencing package and just do it that way because it's heaps easier than a lot of you are making it. Was it a defense website? Yeah, so in that case, it may be totally valid and there may not be an author because obvious reasons there may not be an author. That's fine. You just don't put it in. We'll talk about references later. Because I think you're all doing it wrong. I don't. Have you guys watched the Word 101 video where I tell you how to put references into a document? Is the milestone sheet we filled out in our tutorial the only thing that's due tonight? No. The milestones you filled out in your tutorial are due next week. If you're a Monday to Thursday class. So if you filled them out this week in your tutorial, they're due next week. You have 7 days plus however many days to up between when your tutorial is and Thursday night. When setting bounds in our scope, how should we word it? For example, we'll take up to 10 hours to build. No. You want to set it the other way. We'll take less than 10 hours to build. But yes, you're going, if you think it will take you 5 hours to build, then you say will take less than 10 hours to build. So we can give background and information on that company. Yeah, does it, it matters that you can do a weighted performance criteria for them, and it doesn't matter beyond that. I understand what you're getting at. Your question is a valid one. It's just, yeah, you only need enough to be able to do a weighted performance criteria, which should have fallen out of design thinking from this week for you. You can find full information and many examples against APA 7, I think you mean, to say that in the library at our website. Yeah, you can, but you don't need to. Just put it in the Word thing. It's fine. Do my own peer-reviewed PhD before final paper is due so I can quote myself. Self-citations in research are something of a questionable thing to do. We try generally not to do self-citation. We always do self-citations. Like as you build up a body of research, I've cited Cuss Kelly fairly often, although I don't use name date systems, so I've never written Cuss Kelly. But I've cited my own papers a bunch of times. It is a thing that we do. And sometimes it can be helpful so that you don't have to constantly repeat yourself. You can just go, an explanation of this has been given elsewhere. Boom, citation. But it normally takes you quite a few years in the game before you get to the point where you can self-cite. In Mech tutorial 126, it says 28th. Does it? This may, hold on. I'll check that for you. I want to make sure that's not just a typo. 28, 26, 26. Sorry. No. I'm going to fix that. The fourth. Let me edit. I can't edit somebody else's comment. No. Okay. Okay. Um. Correction. No, it's the fourth. Okay, that's a typo by Mark. I must have communicated something poorly to Mark. I'm going to address this in a couple of minutes anyway. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I've got a slide where I talk about when your milestones are due, so I'm not going to try and rush an answer out right now. Just hold your horses there. Yes, that will absolutely be addressed in a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to get started, guys, because it's 4 past, 5 past, close enough. I understand that you have a lot of questions, and that's totally fine. We are going to spend a lot of time doing question and answer today. What I want to do is scope the next like 15 minutes to get through this in a structured way. So stop asking me assessment 2 questions until I get to the point where I start saying, all right, ask me assessment 2 questions again. Okay, because I know you have them. I'm dedicating most of the stream to it. I'm not dedicating the next part of the stream to assessment 2 questions. So we're going to get through a few things that absolutely need to be clarified. I know many of you already know this, but some incorrect information was shared by the university today because they're fucking idiots. So some things I want to be crystal clear about. We will not run a face-to-face ENGG1500 class between now and the next ENGG1500 live stream, okay? So tomorrow is a public holiday, and those Friday students wouldn't be coming in. Monday is a public holiday, those students wouldn't be coming in. The university normally takes Tuesday off as well, as a concession day, they call it. The rules around this have been completely and utterly fumbled, to put it nicely, this year by the university. So I don't know what's happening with your other classes, but I was assuming no classes were running Tuesday, which is what has been announced. Which leaves me in a really awkward spot. Do I run classes for just the Wednesday, Thursday kids? And I decided no. I'm going to can those classes as well, which means between this live stream and the next live stream, you do not physically attend an ENGG1500 tutorial. I've got no fucking idea what your other course coordinators are doing, so listen out to them. But in ENGG1500, don't go to a tutorial between this live stream and the next live stream. Okay, everybody gets one tutorial off. You are still required to do your milestones over this period. So what that's going to look like is if you wrote a milestone this week, it's supposed to be delivered in your class next week. But most of the classes aren't running next week. So what I'm saying for that is if you wrote a milestone on Tuesday today in a class, you need to complete that milestone and post your deliverable to your Discord channel by next Thursday. I think I wrote these dates in here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. By the 4th, all right? Next Thursday by midnight. You need to post 3 things. Your milestone sheet that you filled out this week, you need to post a picture of that so we know what the hell you said you were going to do. You need to post your deliverable, whatever that looks like. And you need to post a fresh milestone sheet that you filled out detailing what you're going to do by the following week. So everybody's got to put those 3 things up, right? And that will be the same process every week. It's just normally it will happen in your class. This time it's happening on Discord. The reason normally it should be, and I considered saying, you have to upload your milestone by the time of your class next week. But I wasn't going to be able to enforce it anyway, so I'm just saying if your class is anywhere between Monday and Thursday, just put it in Thursday by midnight, okay? Yes, into your team chat, correct. So put it in your team chat, and then once you've put everything up, tag your tutor. Now, when you do that, I strongly advise that you consider that your tutor is going to have to mark these on a day where they're not paid to mark them. So, don't just randomly post them in and amongst all of your shit talking. Get your whole team together and organize, hey guys, when are we all going to be finished? We're going to post all of our milestone sheets and all of our deliverables and all of our next milestones all in one big chunk. And then we're going to tag our tutor once, and everything's going to be there all nicely laid out, and maybe pin the message so that they can get to it nice and easily. Do a little bit of market empathy, because if they can't find your milestone because it's buried in a bunch of memes, which is fine. I don't give a shit if you post memes in your private channel. That's why we make you private channels. But for the purpose of when you're going to reach out to your tutor, please make their life as easy as possible. Okay? Cool. So the one kind of exception to this is the Friday classes. So they're going to miss tomorrow. If you've got a class on Friday, what you need to do is fill out a milestone sheet and post it in your Discord. And then you need to complete that milestone between tomorrow and next Friday, and you will have a class in week 6, and you'll be able to come in and deliver your milestone. How can we find out our next task? You set your own tasks in the milestones. We never set you tasks. You set your own milestone tasks. It's about you being able to do independent learning from here. So you will complete your milestone each week. Then you guys should all have a team meeting. Go, where are we up to? What have we got to do next? Okay, we've got to do this, 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 and this. Divvy those tasks up to whoever's best to complete them, and then go off and complete them. So it's all self-assigned. Cool. Can we fill out the milestone sheet online and post that? Or does it need to be the printed version? I would prefer you to, at least for the ones that you did this week, you will have all filled them out on paper. And it's a good idea to just take a scan of that and put it up, or a photo of that and put it up. I think I want you to always have a physical copy, because when it comes to marking you off in class, it's way, way faster to mark you if you have physical copies, and the tutors don't have time for you to pull it up on your computer or whatever. So I would say it's probably the right thing to do to have a physical copy every week, whether you think you need it or not. I think that's the safest thing for you, because we're going to need them the following week to check them off and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to say print it and fill it out. I know it's a little, maybe do both the first week when you're doing this, but make sure at the very minimum you always have a printed version. We did that. Okay, ambiguity is never in your favor. So when you write your deliverables, be as specific as you possibly can. When you're working with a client, like me in this case, say I'm the person bankrolling your team, and you're going and you're going to say, hey, Dylan, you pay our salaries, and each week, we're going to do this and we're going to do this. It's in my interest to take advantage of you and try and get you to do as much work as humanly possible every week. So if you write an ambiguous deliverable, I'll write a report. Then I'm going to expect that report to be 200 pages long. Because of course I am, because you didn't tell me how long the report was going to be. So I'm going to try and take advantage of you at every possible opportunity. So when you write your deliverables, the reason I encourage you to be specific about them is to protect you, so that they don't get misinterpreted 7 days later and somebody go, well, I expect you to do a lot more than that, so you're not getting the marks. Make sure your deliverables are specific. Ambiguity will always be ruled against you. So don't be ambiguous, okay? Cool. That being said, so the purpose of kind of the client meeting that you guys are going to start having week to week, which is not really going to have next week because it's online, which is a really bit of unfortunate timing, but after that you'll start having client meetings every week. Remember, they go both ways. To some extent, I'm going to demand you show me the work that you said you'd done. That's fine. That's how this works. But they're also an opportunity for you to say, all right, Dylan, I did that work, and now in order for me to move forward, I need you to tell me this, give me this resource, give me some help with this thing, give me some clarification. So make sure you're kind of getting the help you need, or saying, hey, Dylan, I think I've got a really good idea, but the current constraint set are stopping me from doing it. Can you help me deliver on this thing? So use your milestone meetings to go both ways. I know you won't really have them next week, but keep this in mind in the future. The objective here is that you do these little milestones every week that keep you on track, so that when you come to doing your project testing in week 12, your project kicks ass, because you've been working with your client every single week up until that point. And there are no surprises on test day. You already know it's awesome. You already know you're going to smash it and get like minimum 90% out of it, because every week you've made progress. That's the point. And also that will then mean it will be easy to smash your final report out and get heaps and heaps of good grades. That's like the mega mind version of what we're trying to do here. All right, and then I think this is going to be the last thing I want to talk about before we get into the assessment help. Marker empathy. So, you guys have spent, if you've done design thinking with me this week, you would have spent a little bit of time doing some empathy mapping with who your different users and target audiences and stuff are. This is a thing that you should do anytime you're ever being marked. Put yourself in the shoes of a marker and think about how they are assessing you. First impressions really matter. And this may be, we're talking about your client meetings here, but we're often talking about like reports and stuff like that as well. Also, the way this is often most obviously portrayed is when people are standing up to give speeches. How long does it take you when somebody, a lecturer stands up, a fellow classmate stands up, something like that? How long does it take you to make your mind up whether you think this person is boring or this person is interesting? Because it's way faster than how long it takes them to even get their first sentence out of their mouth. People make up their mind about other people really fucking quickly. And so what you should always make sure you do whenever you know you're being assessed in any way, shape, or form is make sure you make a good, clear first impression. And it can be little things. It can be the way you look when you're coming to do a presentation. It can be your first sentence. It can be stuff like an assignment, the handwriting that is on the front page. That can be enough to make your marker go, oh, this is nice. Oh, for fuck's sake, how am I going to read this goddamn thing? It really, really matters. So spending a little bit of time empathizing with who your marker is. The other thing is, sometimes you'll be marked by a human being where stuff like handwriting matter. Sometimes you'll be marked by a computer where something like, if it's due at 23:59, 1 minute before midnight, then it's due then. And if it's 1 second late, it's late. The computer has no empathy, right? You're on time or you get zero. Computer doesn't fucking care. So make sure you do that correctly. You're aware of what it is that is assessing you and how to present yourself such that you do as well as possible. This is going to be a big thing when you guys get your assessment twos peer reviewed by your peers. So, how much time are your peers going to have to mark it? Can you do things that make life easy for them? So, some of the things that, and I know you guys aren't doing any handwriting in this particular case, but it can matter. Or when you're doing hard copy submissions. These are the things I went and asked a bunch of my colleagues, and I was like, hey, what really pisses you off when you're marking assignments? And these are the types of things that I got back from them. You don't want to put your marker on the wrong side before you start. So anytime you're getting marked, my point is spend a little bit of time thinking about what it's like to be on the other side, and then do what you can to make that person as happy as possible whilst they're marking your report. Because no matter what, virtually all marking requires some level of judgment to be done. Otherwise, computers would do it all. And they don't, because some level of judgment is required. And so there's ambiguity. So you want to always fall on the correct side of that. Okay, that's all I have for that. Do you have any questions about this before we move into assessment 2 stuff? I don't want to spend too long here. I was hoping to get done by 5:15, which is about what it is. Do you have any questions? There is no midterm. I'm not sure what you're asking, Kate. There is no midterm in this course. If you could be a little bit more, are you talking about a specific assessment? Let me know. Otherwise, when is assessment 2 due? On the 2nd. On the 2nd. Okay. All right. I'm gonna throw this open to questions in a minute, and we're gonna review a bunch of the other reports because that seems to be a really helpful way. But a few of the questions I've been getting through the Discord and stuff that I wanted to address. Download Word so that you have an actual copy of Word. You need it. Don't use the online version of Word. Download it. Some of you have had trouble with it. So if you have had trouble, maybe if you can put that together and post that, say in the Discord channel or something like that, then maybe somebody who's had success downloading it can help you. And we can make a channel for that if I need to. If people are having heaps of trouble just with Word, I'm happy to make a I'm having trouble with Word channel, and you guys can talk in there. But if you're really having troubles, don't fight the battle that you don't have to fight. You can use the uni computers. So you can do all of your writing, and then you can just go to uni and you can just format it at uni. Spend like 4 hours one day just going through being like, all right, I've written all of this up in whatever, and it's not formatting very nicely. But I've finished all my content, and I'm just going to go to uni, spend 4 hours editing, and be fucking done. And then you know it's done on a proper version of Word and all that. So just do that. If you don't have the most up-to-date version of Word, do that. I've gotten a whole heap of questioning about stuff that I'm like, that's explained totally in the Word 101 video. And I've been trying to be very patient and re-answer them, because maybe I've just done a bad job of explaining it in the Word 101 video. But I do think there's a whole bunch of you doing stuff the hard way, like having issues with captions and particularly referencing, because I don't think you've watched the Word 101 video. So maybe if you haven't do that and you're having some trouble, go and watch that, because it's meant to just be something to help you. I know a lot of things in Word are a bit shit. That's why I made that video, to help you do that. Some of the other things specifically, and I think I'm going to do this as an example in the reports. But some people have been asking me about how to do quotes. Don't quote. There is almost no circumstance in an engineering report where you should ever be putting in a quote. And it's probably telling me you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't have a document up and open in front of you whilst you're writing your document. You should read all the relevant information and then close it all, and then write your own words. If you have another version of it up in front of you, you are bound to write really badly. Don't do that. It's a trap. Don't do it. Close everything down, write everything in your own words. Sure, you're not going to get everything perfectly right, and that's okay. And then you can kind of pull it back up and you can do a comparison if you need to. And, make sure you get the exact specifications or numbers right or whatever. Just don't have those things in front of you. That'll prevent you from quoting in the first place. I'll do this as a live example for you so that you can see it. There was some stuff about some figures I'm going to do as a live example as well. Some stuff I've been getting asked about the target market quite a lot. This is something that I think is a little bit of wording that's a little bit ambiguous. Target market versus customer versus client. This depends on your project. So if we're talking about the civil water tower project, they have a very specific, they have multiple actually different target markets who are different clients who might be elderly people versus renters versus millennials. In the robot project, you don't have that. You just have Caudal AI or a competitor to Caudal. So it depends a little bit on your project. You don't necessarily have all 3 or 4 of the different things, and that's okay. That doesn't necessarily matter. That should have fallen out of your design thinking. You should have done empathy. You should have done some empathy mapping with who your different user groups are. That's what I'm talking about there. Who your different stakeholders are. The other one I've been getting a lot of questions about is the weighted performance criteria. If you're confused about what a weighted performance criteria is, please go and maybe rewatch the week 3 lecture because it's in there pretty heavily. We also did a bunch of examples of it at the back end of the week 3 live stream. So maybe go and rewatch that. That's a big, long live stream. It's at the end of that. Like watch the last half an hour or something of the week 3 live stream. It'll take you through there. You do not need to evaluate your solutions. So in the week 3 lecture, for example, we use a decision matrix. We have our weighted performance criteria up the top, and then we have a whole bunch of potential solutions on the side, and we rank them all. This is a decision matrix. You guys aren't at the stage yet where you have a whole bunch of potential solutions. So you don't need to do that part. You just need to do the weighted performance criteria. I just want you to put down what your criteria is, what its weighting is with a number, how important it is, and some justification of that. Okay? That's all you need. You don't have to make a matrix. You don't have to assess all of the different solutions. And then the final thing that we were just talking about in here was some scoping stuff. What goes in your scope? It's all about defining your problem space. Going, what are the bounds of acceptable here? So for many of you who are physically building something, you're going to want to let me know whether you're building a thing the size that I can hold in my hand or something the size of a house. When you say water tower to somebody, do they think you're making something this big to put 200 liters on? Or do they think that you're making something the size of a building to put 200,000 liters on? It's bounding the problem, okay? Again, hopefully your design thinking got you to think really broadly and now allows you to kind of come back in and go, all right, let's put some bounds of rationale and reason on this thing. And hopefully that helps. If I have a big, so I'll just, yeah, sweet. So we're going to move on to doing some examples in a minute. So if you have some A2 questions, chuck them up now. I'll try and answer a bunch of questions rapid fire right now. And then I'll pull up some of these example reports and we'll start going through them. Hey, glad you liked the Word 101 video. I rewatched the week 3 lecture and it is talking about how important an attribute is for the project. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's part of your weighted performance criteria. And you get to that how important by thinking about who your users are and what matters to them. Is using the same example equations as the tutor slide okay? Yeah, that's fine. No, you wouldn't necessarily have to change the numbers around. I think that would be fine. If you're using it as an example, I think there is value in preserving the exact example. I don't know if a table would be good for the weighted performance criteria. I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong. It's probably not how I would do it, but I could see how you could do it that way. If I have a big chunk of writing that is based on a single reference, is it appropriate to write a short sentence above the paragraph saying that all the text below is based off blah? Absolutely. That is a totally fine thing to do. And you don't have to actually write it above the paragraph. You can even write it at the top of a section sometimes, saying, you know, the following is based heavily on, and for you it might be the module 1, module 2 slides that were presented in the thing, and would just kind of write out about that. You want to make sure there's no ambiguity. You never look like you're claiming credit for somebody else's work, but provided you don't, yeah, that's a really, really good way to do it. Individually or as a team? Individually. Everything that goes in this report should be individual. Can I just use the acronym UNISH? Absolutely not. How many people do you think actually know what that stands for? Because I don't know what that stands for. Is it necessary to have both a table title and a caption? No. No, you don't do table titles. Table titles aren't really a thing. Table captions are a thing. Is the weighted performance criteria done informally? No, it's done. It should be pretty rigid. I don't know what you're asking about there, Zach. Sorry. Do we put the URL of an image in the image caption? How do we reference them? No, no, no. You don't put the URL in. You just do a reference. You just reference the website that you got it from. Is the robot project if we had assumptions that were disproven by the competency that go into the assumptions or learnings? That would go into the learnings of the competency. Confused on the performance criteria? Go watch the week 3 lecture and the week 3 live stream. Does software need costs for our report? You should be able to estimate some costs. Sorry, talking about weighting performance. Okay, is that the whole section broken up into paragraphs? I still don't understand the question, sorry. When we're referring to ourselves for a certain task done in summary, do we say team member 1 or question mark? Okay, so the only time you would be referencing yourself, this is a good question. Normally, when we write as engineers, we shouldn't have personal language at any time because it should be irrelevant that these things happen to us because they're statements of fact. The one time I would say you should absolutely feel free to throw that out the window is when you're talking about learnings from the competency. If it makes more sense for you there to say, I personally learned a whole bunch about how using this tool on 12mm ply was terrible, then I would consider that reasonable to use personal pronouns there. For Enviro in a 5-page summary, so you're talking about the part where we talk about the background information. Should I write about types of filters and what they do? Yeah, absolutely. You could definitely do that. Yeah, you should talk about what you learned in the tutorials, but Paige, I think that's absolutely appropriate for this. One of the reasons that summary section is phrased the way it is so that you can talk about tutorial stuff, but you can absolutely talk about content not related to the tutorials if you think that's appropriate. Okay. A3 is due in multiple parts. I think the first part is due 1 or 2 weeks after assessment 2 closes, and then the following part's due 1 week after that. Do equations need captions and a cross-reference? No, you never caption an equation. You should technically give all equations an equation number, and then you can cross-reference that, but I haven't made that a requirement in this report because putting in equation numbers is a bit shit. I'll show you how to do it, but it's a bit shit. All right, I'm going to start looking into some of these because I think they're going to help us formalize some of what we're already talking about. Lectures, week 5, reports as first. All right, how's this look on stream? Can you guys see this? Can I zoom a little bit? Hopefully you guys can read that. Where do we submit drafts for the uni provided AI review? You just submit them in the assessment portal, man. It'll just do it automatically. All right, so I have a report. I gave myself the note to do this one first. I can't remember why I told myself to do this first. So this person probably needs to fill this out still. It doesn't look like they've done that. If you're confused about where your tutorial number is or your project, I'm just going to pull this up for you. You go to Discord, you look on the left, and it will have your tutorial number. This particular team is T01/08. So that's what I'm looking for your tutorial number. It's 08. And if you want to know what your project is called, go to project, and whatever it is called in here is what it is called. All right. So your education or your aero or your robot, whatever you see there is your project title. Cool. You're missing the table as well. So you're going to want to put that in and fill that out at some stage. I think I know which this one is. Yes. Okay. So this is why I wanted to put this one in. So I wanted to talk about the figures here. So there's some text wrapping that's going on here that we don't want to do. So what we want to do when we're going to put our figures in is this. We want to go use inline with text only. This is the only text wrapping option we ever want to use. We don't ever want to end up like this. We want to end up with our figures centered in the middle of our page and never with text around them. We also want to make sure we can right click and insert a caption. We can come in and go write in whatever our caption is, and it should be quite informative. So, aerofoil, I don't know. I don't know why this is in here, but schematic showing key features, blah, 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 blah. Stuff like that. It should be more detailed than this. You want to put quite a lot of information generally in your captions. And now we've got a caption. What we also want to do is come up to our styles here. So it's automatically put the caption in, which is fantastic, but its formatting is completely fucked. So come up to the caption style, right click modify, come into here and go, this is supposed to be Times New Roman. It's supposed to be, I don't know what size font it was supposed to be. I'm going to say 10. It's not meant to be bold. It's not meant to be italics, and it is meant to be black. Okay. And now this is fixed, right? And now I can come to another figure later on. I can fix my text wrapping here as well. I can center it, and I can insert a new caption. And I can say, you know, stuff about planes and shit. Whatever my caption for this is going to be. And now, because I fixed the actual style, my font is fixed forever. So this is the correct way to do this. It's to fix your styles so that your formatting is good from that point onwards. Bigger picture problem, though, is all of this white space that we have created. This person text wrapped them the way that they did, I'm guessing because they were trying to save space. What should you do in this case? You should make a multi-part figure. So instead of doing what we're doing here, what we want to actually do is go to PowerPoint. I'm just going to clear this out. I'm going to go to Design, Slide Size, Custom Slide Size. And I'm going to make a slide that is the width of this page. So this page is about 19 centimeters wide. So I'm going to make this be... Oh, it is 19 centimeters wide. That's convenient. Oh, no, it's not. No, it's not. It was 19 centimeters high. All right, it's 19 centimeters wide now. I could arguably make this a lot higher if I wanted to. I think I might, actually. Let's make it higher. Yeah, whatever. Okay, now I have this slide. Now what I can do is I can copy this. And I would save this slide somewhere on my computer as a template. Picture format, align center, align left and align middle. And I know I can make this thing be, what did I make it? 19. So I can make it 9.5 wide. And I can come here, and I can come here, and I can copy that. I can go to here, go to here, go to here, go to here. Make it 9.5. Align right, align middle. And now these two things are lined up. And now I can come in and insert text. Say I wanted to insert my own text. Say I didn't like this text, or I wanted to put these in as A, copy, paste, B. And I can make sure that my text is times, and it's supposed to be 12-point font, right? I can do that here and here. No, it didn't give me 12-point font. And this is how I can make figures up. And then, if you do all of this, you can file, save as, and you can export this as a PNG or something else or a whatever. You can do all sorts of other things whilst you're doing this. You could draw lines, you could make connections, you could delete most of the shit that's on here that's got terrible resolution and maybe isn't using the terminology you want, and you could make it all yourself. This is the correct way to make figures. And then you take that multi-part figure and you plonk it into your report. And now they're side by side, and now they don't take up as much space and all of that. You can do the super lazy thing and just snip from here, but if you make your presentation the correct size to begin with, you never have to do that again. You will forever have one slide that is exactly the same size as an A4 page, and then you can use that to make appropriately sized figures for the entire rest of your life. I would very, very, very strongly suggest you all set up a slide like this so that you can make figures from here on out. Okay, because I wanted to show the figure stuff there. I wanted to show the captioning stuff here. I don't know if there's much else I wanted to show here. They're manually doing their bibliography, which I think is doing it the hard way. It's hard to fit stuff. Cool. All right, I'm going to give a quick scan of the chat in case there's any questions. Okay, so let's do the cross-referencing. So the figure 1 above shows. Now that I've put in a figure and I've captioned it correctly, I can cross-reference this. So I want to go insert, cross-reference, figure. And you don't want entire caption here. You want only label and number. Okay. Goes. There. And now it's figure 1. And this is an automatic hyperlink. So at the moment, this is figure 1, right? And this is figure 1. But if this person comes in and goes, oh crap, I want to put a figure in my project scope and put 2 figures in my big picture overview, if you put them all in correctly and you give them all captions correctly and you do all your cross-referencing correctly, all of this will automatically update. This will automatically become figure 3 and this will become figure 3 and it will all just work. If you don't fuck it up, it will all work fine. Sometimes you'll fuck it up and that's okay, and you might have to come back in and do some of it manually. But if you get it right, it should all just be completely automatic and you'll never have to bat an eyelid at it again. You just have to do it properly and you should be fine. Yeah, nobody ever text wraps. It's horribly unprofessional. I know that you don't know that and you've never been told that, but don't ever text wrap. Oh, no double spacing. You are correct. So this paragraph, good call, is not currently double spaced. Format, paragraph, spacing, double. Okay. And then that's going to expand this out. Good call. It is supposed to be double spaced. Cool. So you can edit other people's figures. Yeah, we do it all the time. Yeah, and should you state that you reference them? Yes, you absolutely should. Okay, so here's another thing that this is currently missing. This is a figure that this person got from somewhere. Let's go down and have a look where they got it. They have where they got it from? All right, let's do this one because this one has the reference. So this figure here, this person got, I'm guessing, from this reference. Um, what you should do in this case is, and I'm going to use this as a way of showing you how to put references in, is you should put a reference in the figure caption of where you got this from. So here you'll come up, and you don't have to use the inbuilt word one. If you know how to use EndNote, you're allowed to use EndNote, but you can come up into here and you can put in a citation. Add new source. This is, let's go down. Benson. Insert citation, add new source. Retrieved from, okay, this was a website by the looks of things. Does it have an author? It does have an author. Edit. Last name. Benson. First is T. They go by their first initial. Add. Okay. Simplified aeroplane motion. Looks like it's probably the title of the web page. I'm aware I'm probably making 1,000 typos. I don't really care at this stage. Name of website. It doesn't look like we know that. Year 2021. And URL. I can't grab the URL right now, but you'd copy and you'd paste that URL in. I'm just going to put in some whatever stuff just so that it's got some text in it right now. But you'd put the actual URL in there. Okay. I'm just going to delete that for now. Move this out of our way. Now that that reference is in, I can go insert citation and see here it's in my list now. So you can just put all your citations in and then you can just come and pick them from the list and it will automatically put the reference in for you. And if you wanted to use that same website again down here somewhere, because let's say they helped you with this sentence as well, you could just come in and insert it again. And as you continuously put your references in here, they'll just all sit there in a big long list for you. And you can just put them in as you want. Then you come down here and instead of manually putting in a bibliography, what you do is you can insert a reference list, which I need to remember where this is in Word. Bibliography, references, bam. And it will put it in for you and it will automatically format it for you. So you never type any of this in manually ever again in your life. Turns out, I don't want APA. Dylan fucking hates APA. I want IEEE. Hey, look. This has automatically reformatted to be IEEE. You never write references in by hand. You put them into a citation manager, whether it's the one in Word or it's EndNote or it's Mendeley. I don't care. You get a citation manager and you use it. Okay? Every now and then there is some really weird and messed up rules, like this is probably using APA 6th edition and technically APA 7th edition exists. And maybe you want to make some changes, but Dylan doesn't fucking care. Just learn how to use a reference manager, a citations manager. Okay? Okay. Cool. So using that slide, you would delete the figure and put the new ones there. Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. So that's exactly what I did for my PhD thesis. Here you're talking about using this slide. So I made one of these for my PhD when I knew I was going to make hundreds of figures, and I would just put the figure in there, format it the way I'd like it to be, save it. I'd often save it as both a PDF, not as a PDF, save it as a PowerPoint, and then save it as a PNG, and then use it like a template so that I could make hundreds of figures that all sort of felt the same, and making them was super quick and super easy. Do we have to use figures in? Oh, absolutely. You should never ever write an engineering report that doesn't have figures in it. These are really good figures, by the way. What do we put in the part of the title page like this? So you just go to Discord, John, and you just go TO1 dash whatever it is, whatever number goes there, and and you just basically fill that out. Whatever your project name is whatever you see in here under project. Yeah, I told you double spacing from the start. Shouldn't it be a reference list and not a bibliography? You are correct. So technically, and this is a little bit of being a stickler here, but technically a bibliography are things you read. Reference list is things you cited. In engineering reports, we use reference lists, not bibliographies. Since we are meeting with you as the client, do we specify that you are representing the client? Yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely do that. What's the minimum amount of figures? It depends. It really depends. I'm a big fan of not doing this. And actually, I'm going to move on to the next one because one of these other ones looks at figures a little bit differently and it might help. So give us some more perspective. I don't know which one of these looks at figures differently. I don't know. One of the ones we're going to do as an example at some stage will hopefully help us look at figures differently. Cool. Oh, sweet. So they filled that out, which is great. Give yourself a mark at some stage, do it at the end. You've got this in here. Yeah, make sure you fill all this out when you get a chance. It is absolutely not urgent. You should absolutely do it at the end. Oh, here we go. Here, this is nice. Look, this is not nice. Okay, this is almost beautiful. This person has done a side-by-side figure, and they've done a really nice job of this. Oh, this is very good. Figure 1A, Google Maps of the wetlands. B, Google Maps. Yeah, so, okay, I know why I wanted to do this one next, because this person has done exactly what I was just talking about, right? They've made a multi-part figure to save themselves on some space. They've made their multi-part figure in Word, though, which is okay. There's not necessarily... Oh, no, they haven't. I don't know what they've done. I think they might have made this in PowerPoint and then just imported it as two separate figures, which is fine. That's a totally valid thing to do. So this is an example of a multi-part figure. This person still needs to change this caption because it's formatted incorrectly, but they have used captions and thus they will be able to update them all at once, which is great. It is double spaced, which is nice. This is one page, which is good. It's pretty much one entire page. They might be able to get rid of that and save themselves a little bit of space, but oh no, I fucked their pagination up. What you use here to make sure you keep things on the right page, we call this pagination, this is a great spot to use a page break. And that way, and you can pull it up onto that one if you want, that way you're a little less susceptible to, oh, yeah, there's a little bit of dangerous text wrapping going on here, which is a benefit to making this as a single image in PowerPoint. You don't have to stress so much about your text wrapping. But page breaks are nice when you want stuff to start on a new page every time. The University of Newcastle, UON, good. Introducing their acronyms, really good. Biofilter of 1 meter cubed, beautiful. They've got units, they've used their superscripts correctly, they've got a space between their numbers and their units, really nice, really nice. Good. They're talking in their scope, and I'm skim reading this really fast, but their scope has got numbers in it. Maximum dimensions. It can't be bigger than this. It can't weigh more than that. It can't take more than this many hours to do a thing. This is good. Require at least 10 hours of work. I think we've talked about this before. I would rather that be rephrased as require less than 10 hours of work, but that's semantics at this stage. Yep, and now they're using UON as an acronym because they've addressed it before. This is good. I don't know that this is sufficient necessarily because I haven't read it in detail, but it's got a lot of the right parts of making up a scope. There possibly could be some more numbers thrown at it, but maybe now after this person's done some design thinking that they only did this morning, they might be able to be like, oh, here's some extra numbers I can throw at it. Cool. One thing that I don't like at this stage is okay. One thing I do love at this stage is they're clearly doing inbuilt referencing, which is great. If we come down to their references at the end, they've got inbuilt references. This is good. The only thing I would like you to do is make the author be your tutor. Your tutor is probably more an appropriate author than me. Technically, actually, the correct thing to do is to make the I can't insert a citation here. Can I edit a citation? I'm not going to fuck with their document at this stage. Make your tutor be your first author. If you want, you can make your tutor be your first author and I can be the second author, but your tutor should be your first author. It's not super duper important. I just think it's nice for the tutors to be listed as the first author. And then they've got some other things in here. So this is a really good use of the references. Let's see if we can spot some stuff I don't like. I have no idea. I haven't read this, but let's see how long it takes me to find some things I don't like. I personally much rather that your text is justified. I'm much more comfortable reading text that is justified. I don't like that your equations are embedded within your text. I think that they should be done where you actually come in and insert an equation. And you come in and you put a proper equation in here. I would much prefer to see that rather than this. And I would much prefer to see that you use the correct symbols. So I want to see you actually coming in here and putting true multiplication symbols in instead of anything else. So this is much more appropriate. But I like that you're giving me then what all the things mean and what their units are. This is very, very good. This seems short. I think that you've covered a lot more information in the last 3 weeks, or a lot more would be required for somebody to fully understand all of the background that they need. So I'd say you need to fill this out a little bit more. We're starting to fall apart on our units here. Remember that we've got to put spaces in between our units and our numbers. I also don't like your inconsistency here. A lead is a capital L or a lowercase l? Which one? Be consistent. I personally prefer a capital L, but yeah, there is some ambiguity out there. This is good. It's good. This is not good. Our team began by drilling a 27mm diameter hole on the bottom side of a bucket, as figure 1 demonstrates. That sentence sounds great, but what's figure 1, guys? Figure 1's all the way up here. This is figure 1. What the fuck? This is clearly not what this person is talking about. They're clearly just yet to put in the figure that they actually want to talk about here, which is probably why they've put it in bold. Bolding is probably a thing for them to remember to come back and check on this. I don't like using bolding for that because it's really easy to miss. What my trick for this is I use curly brackets. So anytime I'm going to write something I need to come back to, and look, this person's done it a bunch of times. They've put a whole bunch of things in here that they know they need to come back to. This is actually really good writing. They were missing a piece of information and they didn't let that stop them. They just kept writing, going, I need to come back to this and fill it in later, which is brilliant writing strategy. It's just dangerous in case you forget. So I use curly brackets. And the reason I use curly brackets is I don't use curly brackets for anything else in my report writing ever. Which means when I get to the end of a document and I need to do a final proofread, one of the things that I do is I go Control F, find me curly brackets. And it will come through and I've got, oh, here are the 3 things I forgot to come back to. I need to remember to fix that figure up. I need to remember to put something in here. And I need to remember to put something in here. So there's a few different ways you can do this. Some people highlight stuff. Some people write there's strategies for it, but get yourself a strategy that allows you to remember, hey, I haven't finished this yet, and I need to remember to come back to it. Another thing I don't love is the acronym. It's not bad, but you should go full Captain Holt here and never use contractions, okay? It's not terrible. This is not horribly informal in any way, but the tight ass rule is don't ever put a contraction in your formal report. I would absolutely let this slide, But just as a warning to everybody, be very careful about contractions. In general, you shouldn't use them. I understand the irony of that sentence. Cool. I think that's everything I wanted to say there. Okay, so what's the minimum and maximum amount of figures is what I wanted to come back to. This is now one figure, and it has two parts to it. Actually, where's the robot one? Hold on. I have one that might be even better. Layout and performance criteria for code and pagination. Here we go. This person, okay, has one gigantic figure in here that's taking up a whole heap of space and really not adding very much value. And then they have this figure. I'm pretty sure they made this figure themselves by compiling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 different figures together into one. So if you're making figures like this, and you've put 12 little figures into one, you might only end up with 2 or 3 figures in your entire report. If you've got heaps of figures, and I hate this, and we're going to come back to this in a minute. Oh, they're not figures. Okay. But if you've got heaps of figures like this, you might end up with, and your figures are much simpler, you might end up with many more of them. So saying what the correct number of figures is an impossible thing to say. It's just use them when they are appropriate. I'm going to come back and I'm going to read through this report. I'm just going to have a quick scan of the chat in case there's some questions that I should address. If we're referencing a figure from the project assessment page, how would we do that? The same way you do it for anything else. You make a reference out of the project brief. That's fine. What are the dots between every word? Oh, okay. So I have my cues on. So these things here are called cues. And you can turn them off, you can turn them on. I always have my cues on for editing. Again, go watch the Word 101 video. I explain what the value of these are, but they help you do things like realize if you've put extra spaces in and stuff like that. They also really help you if you've got floating carriage returns in. Or in this case, what this tells me is this person's after spacing is crazy. Why is this after 36? It's normally after 6. I wonder if they made a typo and they meant for it to be 6 or 3 and they accidentally made it 36. But see, that was something that just stood out to me like a sore thumb. Because, and that's why there's so much white space here as well, is because this paragraph spacing is just crazy high. So that's why I like having my cues on whenever I'm editing. I know a lot of people don't like reading with them on, and that's fine. I didn't when I was younger as well, but for editing, they're super duper useful. If we're referencing the project brief, is that fine? No, always make it the tutors. It's nice for the tutors to always be the first author. Make it the tutors. References don't need numbers at first. What? I don't understand your question. If you're in IEEE, you'll always have numbers. If you're in APA, you'll be name date. Would we reference you on the lecture video? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to reference the lecture video, that would definitely be me. You can assume that the person has seen the lectures. You're still allowed to be like, as was discussed in lecture 3, if you think that's super duper important, you're more than welcome to. And yes, in that case, it would be me. Do you have thoughts on using subheadings in the document for different paragraphs within sections? Okay, so a general rule of thumb is one sentence does not make one paragraph. Okay, so a paragraph must have at least 2 sentences in it. And a section, similar logic, one paragraph does not make one section. If you want to have a section, you should have at least 2 paragraphs in it. But beyond there, do I recommend having multiple tiers of headings? Yeah, Dylan really likes multiple tiers of headings. I really, really like the structure and it being broken up and it kind of clearly laying out these things. Not everybody does. Some people would believe it's more appropriate to have much less headings. It's a bit of personal preference. I quite like subheadings. I quite like this. That these are all kind of these little subheadings in here. I actually really like this. So I'm fine with it. Also, if you want to consider those dot points, remember you can make your dot point spacing is allowed to be single, or I would make it multiple at 1.08 because I think that looks better. So remember, your dot points don't have to be double spaced. I did that one already. I'm assuming that when referencing multiple members, no, professor would be before doctor. No. No, 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 no. This is absolutely not required in this case, but no, they go in order that they appear. So if my PhD student publishes a paper, if she did most of the work, she will be the first author. It implies who did most of the work. That's why I like to put my tutors first, because it implies that they did a lot of the work and I did a lot of the oversight. That's why I'm not the first author and they are. It's not based on level of authority. Yeah, I know. I made myself sad as well. You should not be lying, and so no. Okay, I derailed the chat there. Sorry, everybody. You shouldn't be using personal language no matter what, so it doesn't really matter. But no, you shouldn't use inclusive language if it's more likely to create confusion. You should be using the clearest language you can. Does each heading need a new page? Each major heading needs a new page. So this should have been preceded by a page break. This should have been preceded by a page break. And this obviously needs to fit on the page above it. Now this picture doesn't have to be this stupidly big, so it can shrink down. This spacing we've already talked about is crazy. This is not... What is going on here? What has this person done? Why is that an equation? I don't know what they've tried to do there. That's super duper weird. I'm going to try and fix this, but my solution... No, actually, I'm going to show you how I fix this. Copy. Fuck off. Paste. Center. Right-click. Insert caption. Figure 1. Blah, 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 blah. Don't ever be afraid to do this in Word. Don't ever be afraid to be like, this is completely and utterly shit the bed. This is not working for me. I'm just going to copy all the important parts and just dump them in like PowerPoint if they're pictures for a second, delete it all, reassemble it. We have to use IEEE. No, you can use IEEE or APA. Are tutors marking this or is it me? It's a combination of you guys, tutors, and me. Can I have an overview for each week to make it clear? Yeah, absolutely. So it's up to you guys to figure out how you want to split up the summary of relevant content. And you absolutely could go week by week. But in this case, this person has said, you know what? I think it's much more important to put in all the hardware in one go than it is to go each week. In this particular project, they used a little bit of hardware the first week and a little bit more the second week and a little bit more the third week. Like they didn't use their ultrasonic distance sensors until the third week. But they've put all of that information up the top, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It's not the only way to do it, but it's a way that you could do it. It made sense to them, and if they've written this well, then hopefully it makes sense to the author. It's your job, sorry, the reader. It's your job to present this in the way that makes most sense to the reader. Do we need to cite pictures you take from Google? Yes, absolutely. You must cite everything you use that is somebody else's work, or you will be accused of academic misconduct and charged with plagiarism. For the robot project, the problem seems very closely linked to the customer. Sure. Is the big picture overview of the problem just about safety? No, it's about all parts of autonomy. Cool. Thoughts on multi-level lists that use numbers, numbered headings, for example, 2.1. So what they're talking about here is you could make this be, what section are we up to? So this would be section 1 of your thing. This would be section 2. Saying this would be section 3. And this would be section 3.1. And then in here, this could be arguably be And they've done this in a little bit of a different way, but just hopefully this illustrates 3.1.1. And this would be, I know I'm totally ruining their formatting here, but just 3.1.2. And you would make it up like that. I love multi-level lists. I don't multi-level lists for headings. I think it is the most bestest, greatest thing in the world for long documents. I don't know if I think it's the most bestest, greatest thing in the world for a 10-page document. I don't think it's that important. I don't think somebody's going to get that lost. Personally, I like them, but they're not required. For software engineering, do we have costs? Thunkable is absolutely not free. I am definitely paying for Thunkable. You need a professional version of Thunkable in order to create a program out of it, so you can go and cost those types of things up. But you can also do some... The bigger picture here, though, is you're not going to know all of your costs and sizes at real-world deployment. It's totally okay for you to estimate in this case. And you can put that in your scope. A maximum price estimated at blah, blah, blah. That's a totally valid thing to do. If two subheadings are combined with limited one page, can we still use a page break for those? I think so. I don't think I have a problem with that. Just make it very clear that each of those sections is then less than a page so that a marker has no ambiguity about that fact. And then I think you're fine. When using a photo we took, do we just ignore referencing? Correct. You don't reference anything that's not in the public domain. That photo is not in the public domain. You do not reference it. We have an example for the summary of info, a heading like summary of info continued on each page. No, you don't need to do that. A lot of these types of things you're talking about only make sense for documents that are 2 to 400 pages long. Somebody's not going to get confused by the fact that when you are in this section, obviously, by the way, we need to be careful that we don't end up with our page break on the wrong page here. In here, somebody's not going to, this is only going to be 5 pages long. They don't need to be told that this page is that page continued. It's not required. Yes, that's totally fine. You can set the numbers to be automatic. Yeah, you absolutely can. I just didn't set it up because I'm rushing. I'm going to go on to... Oh, no, there's something else I wanted to show in this particular one. All right? So for those of you who are coding, this... Need to find out correct way to insert code snippets. Yes, you do. Absolutely. Generally, don't do it. We very, very, very rarely want to see code. And to your credit, author person, you haven't gone and just dumped half a page of code in and said this is the code, because that's horrible. Nobody ever wants to do that. You should only ever put code in if there is a very good reason as to why you would put code in. And it should only ever be snippets where there is value to preserve the exact information. So this is saying if you want to use a sensor, you have to use this exact text in this exact way. That I could see being valuable as a single use case example. But I don't need to then see the code for the ultrasonic distance sensor and for the servo and for the whatever. We don't need to see it repeated over and over and over again. So what you've done here isn't terrible. What you should have done, I think you've copied and pasted this in. Just type it in yourself. So the font that it's given you here is Courier New, and that's exactly the one that you should use. And you should just use that font and you can type it in yourself. You can treat this as what is called a listing. So when we want to put code into our reports, like we have figures and we have tables, we have listings as well that we can use to put something like code in. I wouldn't use it for something this simple. I would just say an example of how the code should be structured. But for something like this, you could make it be a listing. That's how you put that in. Get rid of the black background. Cool. That's the thing I wanted to mention about that. Oh, how am I going? 10 past 6. Okay. Give me a second to have some water, guys. Oh, hey Alex, what are you doing, mate? You are so done. Why are you here? Alex is currently one of my colleagues who is very soon moving on to bigger and better things, who I'm sure has better things to do right now than listen to me. All right, I'll skim some more chat. Hey, I had water as well. Stuff can be two things. It means it did not cite if we take photos ourselves with our camera. Yeah, absolutely. You don't cite things that aren't somebody else's work. The only reason you ever cite is to let your reader know this work was done by somebody else. They deserve the credit for it. Can I use other people's photos that were taken in the competency and reference them as taken by team member one? You can use other people's photos as taken in the competency and acknowledge them as team member one. You can't reference them technically because they're not in the public domain. What you're talking about here is an acknowledgement, and yes, you can. Try not to. Try and always take your own photos so you don't have to deal with this shit because it looks real messy. But an acknowledgement is the correct thing to do. You are pretty much precisely correct there, Paige. With the robot project, do we specify how much the kit costs? You can estimate how much the kit costs, and it's in the order of $150. With the title page, do we write the tutorial class as 25 Monday 12? You write, did this person do it? Yeah, you write that. And then the team number is whatever your team number is. This person has done this correctly. Do that. Code in Thunkable. So Thunkable is the program that the softwares are using, and it uses what we call block coding. And so it doesn't look like this. Where is it? Oh, I must be in the wrong report at this stage. It doesn't look like the code typed out before. It looks like puzzle pieces that you fit together. And yeah, I would absolutely say an example of some blocks fitting together is worthy of putting in your report because it's not something everybody's going to understand. See you, buddy. Weighted performance criteria can be written however you think is best. I would probably do it with paragraphs, but maybe paragraphs and a table I think is probably best. Do both. You've got a page, work it out. Just to clarify for the weighted performance, oh, we did that already. If I did an acknowledgement, would I put it on a page before the actual report, and would it be counted in the page count? So yeah, the big brain, the correct thing to do with acknowledgements is to, and you wouldn't normally have acknowledgements in a 10-page report because you'd normally be expected to kind of do it all yourself. But yeah, normally you would end up in here with a title page, a table of contents, a list of figures, a list of tables, and an acknowledgement section. Um, and yeah, you would absolutely put it there, and then you would put it in the caption as well. So you'd put it in both of those locations. Is the correct thing to do. Unfortunately, no, not sponsored. Taking photo is better or designed with software same as Illustrator. Depends on what you're trying to do. Would an annotated walkthrough of a large thunkable block be a good example for a figure? Maybe. It could be if you did it really well, it could be great, and if you did it badly, it could be terrible. I can see how that could be really nice. I wouldn't do a huge block, but it could be reasonable. I thought academic reports shouldn't include personal pronouns. Yeah, generally they won't, but especially a section like learning from the competency absolutely could, and like our team began by doing this, absolutely that's appropriate information because it is not the same for everybody. See, the way to think about this is this theory here. And yeah, you shouldn't have the we were shown figures because that's irrelevant. So that shouldn't have it because this equation exists and is independent of um, of human beings. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether this happened to me or you or them or whatever. So this is of no value here and it shouldn't be there. However, in the competency section, that's absolutely team specific because not every team began by drilling a 27 millimeter diameter something on the bottom of the bucket. So here I would say it's appropriate. What do we title the document for submission? Whatever it says in the brief? Is it worth a step-by-step method on the competency task? Absolutely not. Do not waste that much time. A brief description of what happened is worth it, but a whole step-by-step is not. All right, I'm going to have a look at some of the other ones that I have, just in case there's something else that is worth talking about. So I've got this one for layout and performance criteria. For some reason, I don't know what I was looking for here. I love that this is justified text. This is beautiful. I don't love this. Oh, God. So we've talked about text wrapping and making figures. Here is kind of the... I can see what this person was getting at, and full credit to them. To make this look this not terrible in Word is probably quite important, quite difficult to do. But I would absolutely be making this as an image in PowerPoint, and also figure captions go below. Table captions go above, figure captions go below. This person's attacked their scope in a bit of a different way. They've asked all the questions, and then they've kind of listed the answers. What they haven't done enough of is put the numbers to it. So it must fit within a constrained size. Yeah, what is that size? That number must be written down. They've done a better job of it here. This device must generate electricity, preferably at least P out is greater than 10 watts. There's a little bit of a tautology there, but to fix their units up, space between your numbers and your units, and what was a guy, so what gets a capital W, because it's named after a person. So I don't hate this way of laying out their scope. Here's the things you should want to know, and here's the answers to them, but they're absolutely missing a bunch of the numbers. Like, yeah, you'll have to source all these materials yourselves. For how much? What's your budget? Put your limitations in. What makes a scope is that it has bounds on it. You don't want to say preferably at least 10 watts. You want something that is a minimum of this. If it doesn't do this, the whole project will be considered a failure. That's what your scope defines for you. This you're trying to optimize. You'd love it to make more than 10 watts, but it must generate electricity. I would say at least P out is greater than 1 watt. If it doesn't make 1 watt, I will consider it a complete failure and it will get 0. Sure, you want to make 10. That's great. That's an objective. It's not a scope. Their formatting could do with some work here to make things a bit prettier, but I don't necessarily hate the way they've broken this up. I think they need a lot more detail in here. I don't like anyone in a hard to reach location. I'd like to see that being a far, far better defined target market. But this clearly is a work in progress for this particular person. They've taken these images, they took them directly out of the workshop slides, and so they should have been referenced. They've tried to make a multi-part figure here. This should be one figure, and this is going to end up being, well, all their figure numbers are all over the place, right? So they're going to have a figure 1 here, maybe a figure 2 here, figure 3 here, part A and B, a figure 4 here, parts A, B, and C. So they should be using the PowerPoint trick to make their life a lot easier. And they should have references in for all of these. Their spacing is fluctuating all over the place. Here it looks single spaced. Here it looks double spaced. This person needs to spend some time going through just with their formatting. And it's not required right now. What's required for them right now is to get all their content out. And that's what they should be doing. I have absolutely no problems with the fact that this looks ugly as hell. What's much more important to them right now is they're getting content down. Once you've got all your content down, author of this thing, then come back and make it look pretty. You can make it look pretty at the end. But yes, you can make it look pretty at the end. You should make all of this look pretty. There is a better, easier way to do this. Also, just so you know, picture format, picture size. Like, the fact that these are all different sizes looks fucking garbage. So just, like, make them all be the same size. Or crop them so they're all the same size. Again, this is heaps easier to do in PowerPoint, because PowerPoint actually allows you to drag things to be the same size. So do this in PowerPoint, but remember, you can go into picture format and you can type in the size of your pictures so they are exactly the same size, or width, or whatever you want to do. There was some other reason I wanted to look at this. Okay, this person's put some equations in. That's nice. I'm not sure why they bolded them, but okay. You don't need an equation caption. You should technically have an equation number on the side, but it's here nor there for me. I don't really care if you do that in this report. I have been asked this question that you can't change this font easily out of Cambria Maths. That's fine. I'm willing to accept Cambria Maths within equations. Equations in Times New Roman also look like trash. Cool. Some of these being bold, some of them not being bold is very inconsistent, and some of this text being different. So this person has a lot of coming back and formatting to do, but that's okay. Okay. So this person has started on their weighted performance criteria. It's probably not well enough defined for me to really be able to talk about, but they're kind of trapped themselves here. So you don't need each one of these, and it is totally valid to have more than one kind of target market, or in this case for this particular person, they could do a performance criteria for their client and for their target. That's totally fine. So they might have more than one set of performance criteria. That's a very valid thing to do, is to have, if you've got more than one stakeholder, they might have more than one set of performance criteria. But this is insufficient. You should have, and this probably fell out of your design thinking. I'm not sure when this person wrote this draft. But for somebody who has intermediate power supply, what's important to them, it's going to be things like reliability, durability, lifetime, a whole bunch of performance criteria that you need to rank for that particular person. Okay? This is probably not the structure you want in order to succeed at that. All right, let's have a look at the chat. Do the measurements of the test area in the Aero project brief need to be in the scope? No, they should be indicative. So you should say something like, if the launch distance is, you could use them in your scope actually. If the launch distance in there is like 20 meters, you could absolutely put that in the scope. A launch distance, less than 30 meters away or approximately 20 meters away, that absolutely could go in your scope. For the assumptions made in models pages, I've made assumptions and models headings rather than subheadings, so would they need to be their own page? No, it doesn't matter. As long as it makes sense, to your reader. That's the thing that does matter. Is there a word limit? No. No, you've got all your page limits. You should maybe check the document. You get page limits for all the sections. We allowed to bold, underline things that aren't headings, subheadings? Yeah, you could. I'd be careful with it, but you could. For the robot project, in the description, the client, do we talk about Cordell or from the point of view of tech competitor company? Doesn't really matter. We ran this one year where it was for Cordell, and then we ran it the next year where it was a competitor to Cordell, and honestly, all the reports were exactly the same, so it doesn't super matter. Whatever you've already started with, just keep going with that. It's fine either way, man. Do you know how we calculate an estimated file size for the software projects? What do you expect people to be uploading there? Are they going to be putting PowerPoints with pictures and stuff on there? Because if so, just hack together a PowerPoint with a bunch of pictures in it and see how big it is. And then how many presenters are you planning on having at the conference, and are they putting all of that up? Or is it just plain text data? If it's plain text data, then you should be able to estimate the size of a file with just plain text data in it being absolutely tiny. Is there a requirement to have 5 references? I strongly suggest you look at the document. Is there a recommended image size? Good question. It depends. It depends. So something like this isn't too bad, except it's very hard to read the numbers. So if you need somebody to read the numbers, this is too small. Something like, I'm just sort of having a scan. This image at this size seems pretty reasonable to me. These seem possibly a little big, but they're not too bad. I mean, to be fair, I made them a little bigger than they were, so they were probably pretty good. Maybe they were closer to 5.5. How does this look? Yeah, maybe something like that's probably pretty nice. There's not a set that it has to be. The only things you have to remember is this is totally unacceptable. You are never, ever, ever allowed to go into a margin for any reason. Completely and utterly unacceptable. Which is the great benefit of doing this, where we made this image be the size of the paper minus the margin on each side, which means we would never, ever exceed that. So it needs to be big enough to get the message across and for the person to be able to digest the content. But that's it. Should we have at least 3 references just from the tutorial content? No? Yeah, correct. Or probably 4, right? 3 from the tutorial content plus your project brief is 4. So you only really need to go and find one external reference. You took a figure from somewhere, bang, you've got a minimum of 5. You shouldn't stop yourself at 5. You can have many more than 5, but it shouldn't be particularly hard to get to 5. If we were to use a figure from the workshop slides but slightly edit it to make it more suitable for what I'm trying to show, is it appropriate to reference it without mentioning I have edited it? No, it would always be appropriate to say that you've edited it. So you'd put it in. You're going to put that reference in the figure caption as well, right? So you would just put it in and say, lift and drag forces, image modified from, and then put the citation in. So it'd just be a couple of words, like something like image modified from, something like that, or edited image of, some words to that effect. With first person, is it acceptable in equations? We are given x. No, it shouldn't be. Generally, it shouldn't be worded that way. It should just be given x, blah, 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 blah. Is it necessary we explain and list about the subjects we learnt in the weeks, same as tutorial, or is it enough we use them in our materials? I don't think I understand the question, unfortunately. It might be worth reviewing the assessment 2 brief if you're asking questions like this, because it tells you the type of stuff you need to do. Go and reread the brief for me. For the performance matrix, it's not necessarily performance matrix, performance criteria. It's a decision matrix, it's a performance criteria. Do we have one for the client and one for the customer for the mechanical project? Yeah, I would. I think I probably would put 2 of them in. Here's the performance criteria. And I mean, you could talk about them in paragraphs all generally, but I think it's probably valid to say, here's the one for that's most important to the particular individual customer who's in a disaster scenario receiving this thing versus the one for the person who's managing the SES or the SES worker or whatever that's deploying it. I could see there being two being appropriate there. Does it matter if we use ratings out of 10 for performance criteria rather than arbitrary numbers? It doesn't, it just has to make sense and be clear. There are issues both ways. There are issues rating things out of 10, and there are issues using arbitrary numbers starting from like 1 and going up or whatever. There are issues both ways. So do whatever makes sense to you. Is it a minimum of 5 pages for the summary? No, it's a maximum. You only ever have been given maximums. Everything is a maximum. Because the robot is a proof of concept, do we need to have scope weighted performance for both the concept and the real world solution? Good question. No. But it is worth stating this very, very clearly in your scoping statement that you are scoping it for the scaled down version. And then maybe you'll even kind of have some caveats that go with it. Like this, it's scoped at this stage here. However, it should be acknowledged that that's really not applicable at the large scale. Wherever you might be exploiting your scale. Oh, I got to the bottom of chat. Okay. There is one more of these that I want to have a look at. That I appropriately titled last. Come to pop. Oh, come on. So, this person said to me, feel free to rip into this report. I think that might have been their exact wording. They wanted me to rip in. So I've been talking kind of generally about some things and being like, oh yeah, this is good, this is whatever. For the next little while I look at this, Dylan's going to get super pedantic. Now, you don't necessarily have to be, this level. It's your first ever report. I don't want you guys worrying about pedantic shit if you don't even know how the fuck to write a performance criteria at this stage. Get your bulk content down first. This, I want to give you an example of like a little bit of a fine-tooth comb read through of something. So I'm going to put my pedantic hat on for a little while here and pick out some things that, let's be honest, most people aren't even going to give a shit about in this particular assessment. But as a learning for all of us, what can we see that we could do just that 1% better? So some things, again, you've explicitly not been told to do this in this report, but normally all of your pages before your first page would get Roman numerals. This is something that we talk about in the lecture and the Word 101 video. You haven't been asked to do it here, but normally we'd go Roman numerals at the start, and then we'd start this page from page 1. Big picture overview. What the fuck is this? Why is there a carriage return that's been dropped there? If you wanted some space, so hold on, I'll show you. What the fuck is this doing here? If you want to make sure that after your titles you have a bit of space, then what you should have done was modified your after spacing on your titles. And what you're best off to do is actually come up to a font here and modify this to be the way you want your big picture titles to be, and then you would make it be the heading 1 style. Cool. I'm not going to read all of the text. I'm mainly looking for formatting stuff here, but with the increasing demand for fresh water in drought-affected states across Australia, new building requirements have been implemented. These requirements being rainwater capture systems. However, many of Australia's suburban houses were not built with these systems. Okay, it's not the most beautiful wording of all time, but honestly, that's a pretty good first couple of sentences. Why the fuck is this in a table? Okay, this person has put a table in so that they could put their figures in side by side. It's actually not the worst idea in the world. I don't hate that. Again, put them in PowerPoint instead. But if you're going to put a fucking table in, at least hide the goddamn borders of it so that I don't have to see your shitty table. Okay. And now you're saying figure A and figure B, except you haven't listed these as figure A and figure B. It sounds pedantic on a 2-part figure, but what if there's a 4-part figure? Does it go A, B, C, D, or A, B, C, D? now you've created confusion. So we don't do that. We always label our figures. And this would be figure 1, part A, and part B. You don't write the word part, you just write figure 1 goes in the caption, and then it's A, and then it's B. Okay, you have a reference in here, but it's not a properly formatted reference. Now, okay, maybe you're using EndNote or something like that, and that just hasn't translated because I don't have your EndNote library. But make sure that you're putting in your references not as plain text, but as a proper inserted reference. Where are you referencing this figure? Where are you talking about figure 1? Because there's no point having these figures in here if you're not going to actually say, as seen in figure 1, or words to that effect. You should always have a cross-reference to your figure every time you put one in. Your pagination is all fucked up. Why? Because you're using carriage returns, enters, instead of using page breaks. Don't do that. Use page breaks. You have a scope. It is here. It has some numbers in it. It doesn't look like it has enough numbers in it as far as I can tell. It might. I'm not sure. I'm not reading it in detail, but I reckon you're missing some numbers. Sizes, time frames, things like that. Yes, these are probably all the numbers out of the brief, but there may be some other things that you want to do, like bound some time frames, expected lifespans, assembly time, stuff like that. I don't know. See if you can throw some more numbers at this. But it does have numbers in it, and they are formatted correctly, which is nice. They've got spaces between their numbers and their units. They've used a proper multiplication symbol, which is good. I am not your author. This should be figure 2. Yeah, this is pretty nice. This is well formatted. Newtons? No, not newtons. These should not be capitalized. So newtons here should not be capitalized, which sounds super fucking weird because you use a capital N, but the reason you don't write Newton out with a capital is in case you ever confuse the unit Newton with the name Newton, which you don't want to do. So that shouldn't have been capitalized. Really super pedantic unit thing. You've referenced at the end of all of these, which is fine. This is one of those kind of awkward situations of how often do you have to put a reference in. You possibly would benefit from mentioning that the first 3 weeks of tutorial content, foundation of blah, blah, blah were covered. Maybe in here you can write a sentence like, the following pages will sample heavily from reference, reference, reference. And then you might not have to reference at the end of every single sentence like you are. But always you're better off to over-reference than under-reference. Why is this now figure 1, 2, and 3 when previously this was figure A and B? What the fuck? Be consistent. It should be figure 1 part A and B, figure 2, figure 3 parts A, B, and C is the correct thing to do in this case. Weird spacings you've got going on again here. I don't know what's the go with your spacings here, but they're kind of all over the place. So you need to come in and look at probably your paragraph spacings before and after, or maybe is it the paragraph spacing before your dot points? But you've got some weird spacing going on. The unit, you have a weird space there that you shouldn't have. Okay. There's less to pick on in this than I was kind of hoping to. To be fair, I'm being pretty pedantic of a first year. This is pretty well laid out. What else can I pick on? All of this is garbage. Like, get rid of this. Use your page breaks. But yeah, I've already picked on you for that. You haven't written your competency task up yet, which is fine. This doesn't look like it's any referencing system I know. So, but maybe this is some weird part of APA 7th edition. I don't know. Okay, something that is bad in here is your hyperlinks. I know that it automatically makes them blue. Get rid of that fact. Make them black. Black. It's the done thing. You don't leave your hyperlinks as blue in reports. You just don't. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. It's just not what we do. I haven't read through this, and it's obviously not finished, but it's pretty well laid out. Well done. Okay. Cool. I wanted to be a little bit pedantic at the end there, not to make you all feel like, holy shit, I need to do all of these things. Just for those of you who, like, you think you're doing pretty well and you want to know, there's some stuff that you might be able to work on. Okay. I'm going to see if I can answer some chat questions, and then hopefully we'll be doing okay. And we'll be hopefully done by 7. Because the robot is... we've already addressed that. Would it be okay for us to import a picture of a self-driving Tesla car for the overview? I'm not sure, as I don't want to promote a different company. Yeah, no, that's fine. You're good there. They're not trying to make self-driving cars, man. That's not Caudal AI's business model. They make vision. They make machine vision things. You're good. Do we need performance criteria for people deploying the wind turbine for mechanical? Maybe. If you think that they're a very important stakeholder, you could put that in. Maybe not. I don't know. I definitely don't think it's required. You could put it in if you thought it was super duper important, but you don't have to. But yeah, it's really good at least to do, should we make up a person that could be deploying it and put a description of them in the target market section? You absolutely could. Whether for the mechanical project you absolutely need to or not, don't know. The aero project, for example, though, they probably should be doing that, because that's going to be like an SES worker trying to save somebody. Your worker is doing a little bit less, probably being out in the middle of a storm in that case. But it's absolutely worth considering who's going to be doing the physical assembly, if there is physical assembly required. There may not be. Maybe part of this is that, hey, we shouldn't do that. You don't have to, but you could. For the people doing the robot, how long would you give the robot for its lifespan? Not very. I think one of the things that you would do is be like, lifespan's pretty irrelevant in this case. It just needs to get through testing phases. Will I be marking this strictly? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I don't recommend that any of you do. I put this in almost as a counterpoint to be like, here's how not to assess someone. Because I didn't read any of their actual words, right? I just nitpicked at bullshit through most of it. So what you really should be doing is, instead of going, oh, I found 5 places where you used your spacing wrong, who the fuck actually cares? And I mean, sometimes I do. Sometimes it's my job to be super duper nitpicky. But did I really assess the value of that report just then? Probably not. So what I would recommend people do when they do their own peer review marking, which they're about to start doing next week, is sure, you can find a bunch of little nitpicky stuff that's wrong. But can you actually evaluate the report better than that? I would never mark first year, first semester students like that. Unless I'd clearly said to them, I don't give a shit about any of your content. The explicit purpose of this report is nitpicky, formatty, marking stuff, which I actually used to run an assignment like that like 5 or 6 years ago. I haven't in a long time. And it was a kind of cool assignment where we're like, we don't care about your content, we only care about your formatting. But that is not what I've done for you in this case. With the links not being blue, should we even make them a link at all? You can leave them as a link. Don't bother going in and removing the hyperlinks. People do. It is quite common to actually go through and remove the hyperlinks. This is one of those things that the way in which we write reports is a little bit traditional and hasn't quite caught up with the modern world particularly well. So what's normally done is you leave them in as links and you stop them being blue. It's just what's done. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying it's what's done. In-text citations for IEEE are just numbers, right? Yep, absolutely. It's why I like them, because I don't feel that they get in the way of the reading as much. We did that. For the compliance section, what are we putting in the empty boxes? Oh, you can just tick them off as you go. So the point of this is, have you put in all the sections outlined in the brief? I hope that you're like, yes, I've done all of that. You can go in and insert an actual tick if you want. Hey, tick. I'm just going to copy it. All formatting requirements in the A2 brief has been followed. You know what I would do here? I would be finished. I'd be ready to submit. I'd be like, I'm just going to go and pull the A2 brief up and just give this thing a final proofread and make sure I haven't accidentally forgotten something, like the bit in it which says all text must be black. And then you're like, crap, I forgot to change my hyperlinks. Go and change your hyperlinks. That's what this is for. This report is appropriate for the target audience. This is like maybe I should give this another proofread and just make sure that I've, whatever. So go through, tick all of these off as you are ready to say, yep, I'm completely ready to submit this. Is it safe to focus on the problem of road network maintenance and then present the robot as a natural solution using new technology? Yeah, you can do that. I think that's fine. No, I will never share example reports with people. This is people's work. I will never share this beyond here. None of you will ever get a copy of somebody else's report. That's just plagiarism central. For the enviro in the problem overview, do I include the solution for the problem like the biofilters? You can include some background information on current solutions to this type of problem. Like, we're in a civil one here, right? So this problem for civil is talking about droughts and the fact that people put in rainwater tanks. And then when we're going to get into the scope, we're going to kind of talk about how the current rainwater tanks that are on the market don't quite fit, well, either the scope or the target market explanation, wherever, that's combined in this report. Then we can kind of be like, okay, here's why that background solution that already exists doesn't quite fit our problem. But you can absolutely talk about it in there. The software tutorial documents have 3 authors listed on them. Do we list all 3 in the same order? Correct. 100% correct. If you have a document that has more than one author listed on it, which the robot projects do, the medical ones do, the software ones do, then you should list all of the authors that are on there in the order that they appear on the document. That is the correct thing to do. Does desale need to go in depth for the target audience? Yes, absolutely you do. Because you have more than one target audience. You have both the Fijian villagers, which are a very difficult target audience for people to empathize with. What is it to be somebody who is in a Fijian fishing village? What do they have access to? What do they not have access to? Is that something that people understand well? And the answer to that is probably no, and so you need to make sure that your audience understands them. Are they able to do maintenance and repairs or not? All this type of stuff. I don't know, I'm looking at a scope at the moment, so I'm kind of thinking about scopy stuff, but you absolutely need to include all of that. You also need to include addressing the NGO. Who is funding this? Because they're not the people funding it, right? So you need to make sure you address who's funding this as well as who's receiving it. So you have 2 different key stakeholders there, at least 2. Too much detail. That's why this is on YouTube. You can watch this as many times as you like. 27 rewatches of Dylan's lecture. Go for it. Is it a requirement to tick off the boxes for compliance? It's people who tick the boxes off. It's really weird. So all of this data that's on here, I started collecting it to see whether there was any correlation between what people wrote down here and how well they did. And people do better, it turns out, if you ask them this question. The correlation is garbage, but on average, people do better if you ask this question than if you don't. I don't know why, but they absolutely do. People do better if they tick the boxes in the compliance than those who don't. I don't know if it's those who don't tick the boxes are just lazy, or if somehow the act of ticking the boxes reminds people to go and double check something and then they do better. But reports that tick the compliance box on average always do better than reports that don't. Physically ticking the box clearly doesn't matter, but it seems to do something to people's brains. Or the causality is the other way, and the people who do really thorough jobs of the documents are the ones who remember to tick. I don't know. I don't know what the logic is. I hope that helps. Just the last thing on hyperlinks, should we remove the underline on them? It doesn't really matter. No one's ever clicking one of them, by the way. You should never, ever, ever assume that if you're handing somebody a report, they're ever going to click a link to go anywhere else, because they're not, because human beings just don't do that. So never rely on a hyperlink, and so generally don't put them in places that it's super important. And to be honest, if they're just hanging out in the bottom of a reference list, whether these are underlined or not, nah, I don't really care. When in-text referencing with APA style, do we need to provide a link in text or only in the referencing page? I've never really done APA before. I would recommend either going back to the earlier bit in this live stream where I explicitly did this as an example, or much, much more intelligent than that is just go and watch the Word 101 video where I explain how to do that. Because if you're asking that question, I think you're making your life difficult in other ways as well. I think there's a better solution waiting for you in the Word 101 video, so go watch that. For the overview of the robot, would it be okay to also mention things like small drones that they use in the military? Also, that Cordell AI use small drones. That you can. You absolutely can do that. Not a problem. Just make sure you don't go down a rabbit hole that is irrelevant to the complete rest of the document. So you absolutely can mention it, and it could be very useful, but is it relevant to the author? Remember, that's why this is on here. This report is appropriate for the target audience. If that target audience doesn't care, it shouldn't be there. Just going with Paige's question, Enviro, can we mention in the current solution potentially as the plastic thing we were shown outside in week 1? The current, okay, so this is very specific to Enviro, but that's fine. The thing you were shown in week 1 doesn't work. It's failed. So that's why you guys are here to help solve the problem. If you would like to use it as a failure use case, you could. I could see how that could be very helpful. You don't have to. But yeah, you could do that. I could see that. That might help the audience actually understand quite a lot. But also be aware that your big picture overview might want to address this problem more large scale than just that one specific use case. Not a problem. I'm happy to help. Who to reference for the Who to reference for the robot project brief is your tutor. It's always your tutor if you don't know. And with that, I am at the bottom of chat, and it is 5 to 7. Go to bed, everybody. I will continue to try to answer questions on Discord if I can, although my ability to help you guys after this is going to have to start diminishing. Thank you for coming to the stream. Good luck with your reports. I will try and get on Discord once a day and answer all of the questions I can once per day between now and Tuesday. I will not get on Saturday because I'm going to Sydney to do some black powder testing with the rocketry team, but on all of the other days, I'll try and spend at least a little bit of time on Discord answering your questions. You don't have to tag me. I'm going to answer a question whether you tag me or not, alright? So I'm just going to go up to the top and work my way down each time I get the opportunity to. You guys can also start answering each other's questions. You don't have to wait for me. Some of you have already been doing that in the chat, and it's been really good because I'm not going to be answering them 10 times a day like I have been. So feel free to answer each other's questions when you feel confident doing that. I'll try and spend a little bit of time every day helping you guys, though. Good luck. You'll be fine. But what I'm reading right now is it looks like you guys are in a really, really, really good place. And by Tuesday, you will have absolutely knocked this stuff out of the park. So I'm not worried about you guys. I will still try and help you, but you got this from here. You've absolutely got this from here. You guys are doing great. So well done. Thank you for engaging with the stream. Try and get some time. to rest and recover over Easter, everybody. I'm sorry I've given you an assessment that's due at the end of it, but try and just get it done and get it off your plate and have a bit of R&R. Try and enjoy the fact that you've got at least ENGG1500. You don't have to physically go into a classroom between now and at least the next 7 days. Enjoy that time. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good night.